Welcome to a homegrown family podcast where we grow the produce and the kids. Hey everybody, welcome to a homegrown family podcast. I'm your host, Joe Metler, and the homegrown family podcast is basically where we talk about anything that I desire and want to talk about. But for the most part, it's related to rural living, homegrown things, raising animals on the farm or something like that. So welcome and thank you for listening. So previously I've done an episode on sourdough, and that was with Michelle, a friend out of Washington that I met back in the day. But today we had a little bit of a conversation with my brother Lawrence about a ginger bug. And I was like, what in the world is a ginger bug? He's like, oh, it's just this fermented blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, well, all right, that's a podcast episode because I have no idea what that is. So kind of similar line of thinking, I guess. It's something that you can do at your house. It's a little bit more natural versus, more commercially produced or whatever. So welcome today, Lawrence, to a Homegrown Family Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Been a while. Been about 2 years, yeah?
Yeah, something like that since we did that mushroom hunting episode. And actually, we got to get out there and check for the morels here. They're probably up this weekend, huh?
I've seen some photos on Facebook about people finding them, at least in southern Minnesota, I think. So
Okay. Yeah, I thought maybe this little warm snap this weekend after that little bit of a rain might have triggered them to go. But unfortunately, I don't think any of us are home to look today.
No.
Maybe I'll have to call Dad up and say, hey, go check them spots and see if you can find them.
Yeah, we'll have to start doing it. It's about that time of year.
Yeah. And actually, now since I moved out to the country here, Lawrence and I are only, about 45 minutes apart?
Yeah, if not
Something
a little
like that.
bit closer.
Yeah. And then we have a nice, was it Tamarack National Grassland or something like that? What is it?
Tamarack, it's a national wildlife refuge.
Yeah. So that's supposed to have some pretty good morel mushrooms and stuff like that. And actually, I was talking to one of my coworkers that is moving on to a different job or whatever. And he was like, and I was like talking about mushrooms, and he goes, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch over in the Buffalo River State Park." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Oh yeah, you just as soon as you get there by the parking lot, over there on the. I better not tell him away too much, but
Yeah, don't give
But I
it
was
away.
like, "Hey, give me your GPS points, man." He's like, "Oh, you just kind of described where they were, and I'm like, you basically find them anywhere." I'm like, "Seriously?" So one day after work, Sophie and I might have to go on a little adventure or something. But yeah. So back to this ginger bug. So Lawrence is just talking to one day, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm making this ginger bug," and I'm like, "Well, like, what's that?" And so let's start off with that question. And what is a ginger bug?
Yeah, so you know how Facebook algorithms work is that you go down one rabbit hole or another and you see things, and I think I was looking up because I've heard of like pine pop. I don't know if you've seen that one either, where you
Nope.
have like white pine needles and you put them in some water, and the wild fermentation process is supposed to take place, and it's supposed to kind of taste like Sprite apparently. But this is the same kind of thing where it's a wild fermentation where you feed it sugars with the ginger, and it's supposed to make like a fermented carbonated ginger bug that you can mix in with other juices and stuff to make a pop, like a flavored pop.
When you first mentioned this to me, I was like, "Oh man, ginger beer. That sounds amazing."
And I think you should do a ginger flavored cider. I think that would be an interesting one.
Oh, would I have to?
You could maybe put a ginger bug into yours, but then that's interesting because it's like, well, it's a wild fermentation, so I don't know if you would have to like just kill it off and then use a ginger infused water essentially to add it to your cider, or how that would work. But I think that would be an interesting combo.
It sounds like all you need to do is take some fresh cut ginger, put it in a solution, so it could be a cider or a water maybe, or like a grape, apple juice or a water, and then you're supposed to feed it sugar. Well, the cider, I guess, or the apple juice would already be full of sugar, right?
Yep.
So if I just toss ginger in there, it would basically ferment itself.
Yeah, I'll start with a small batch.
Yeah. So maybe a gallon. I had a gallon left over that I mixed and matched to make a apple, raspberry, rhubarb cider that's currently downstairs. But I had a gallon left over for that. I could have tested it out. But the way I originally started making cider is that I didn't do any back sweetening or anything. That's why I didn't kill off any of the yeast. And you add a little bit of sugar and you cap it. Then you have some residual, CO2 that's in there from the fermentation process. And you could, you know, blow caps and things like that, or burst bottles if it's too much. So you'd have to kind of figure out, yeah, what your ratio would be, so that way you don't do that. And then you could basically do that with a ginger based beer, I guess,
So
or cider.
the way that we start the ginger bug is the recipe that I was following is that you have like 2 cups water, 1 tablespoon of like a raw cane sugar, tablespoon of like grated or cut up real fine ginger. And what I was reading is that it should be organic ginger to make sure that you don't, for some reason, along that process of processing and being at the store and stuff, you don't have any sort of residuals as far as chemicals, whatever.
Oh,
I think
something like
I think that's what the article was worried about. But
yeah, something like as far as sometimes they clean it, or whatever. So they probably put a cleaning solution on it and then rinse it. But there could
right,
be
so you
some
probably won't
residual.
have as much bacteria or wild yeast on a non-organic ginger root, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're supposed to leave all the skin and everything in with that 1 tablespoon of ginger. So yeah, I wouldn't peel it. You're supposed to have the skin on there because that's probably where most of the bacteria and yeast are at. You put them in there, put them in the water, in a mason jar or something. Give them a good mix so that sugars dissolve.
You put a cap on it, or you just keep it open?
I had a cheesecloth, so it was
Uh,
breathable. So keep it breathable, and then you're supposed to feed it every day, essentially. I was doing I think I was still doing tablespoon of each. You don't need to add water, just add sugar and more ginger. The recipe that I just looked at again this morning was 2 teaspoons each every day for 7 days.
oh wow! And then
And
after that, it's basically fermented enough to do whatever you're going to do with it.
right.
Gosh, this sounds a lot like kombucha or something. I had a roommate in Alaska that was trying to make a big kombucha and have a mother kombucha, and I was feeding it and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely not as intense as kombucha because I talked to a couple coworkers about it and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got your SCOBY and it's just like a mat of like bacteria on top and you can have that for like years." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know if I need to get into that."
Yeah, I forget. Isn't it technically isn't it like a fungus? It's on
Uh,
top. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to find someone that makes kombucha and have a follow up episode.
there you go. But yeah, I've really only made the ginger bug once or twice, but I think you can just kind of keep it going like a sourdough starter too if you wanted. I ended up using all of my ginger bug, and then I'll just have to restart it, I guess, if I want to do more.
Yeah.
It's,
So when you use when you say water, do you need to make sure that it's like distilled water to start, or like I mean, because if you use city water, you could be using that some chlorinated something or other. I mean, is that a something that could
yeah,
affect flavor or taste? I imagine.
I used our reverse osmosis water, which I don't know if that takes out all the chlorine or not. I would have to read on that, but that might be it. Yeah, I mean, I at least use that. It did say, yeah, use filtered water in some of the articles and stuff that I read, or I mean, even distilled water would probably be even better, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah, you don't want to use anything with too much chlorine because then it could kill off the bacteria and yeast, I suppose. What do you use for your cider stuff?
I mean, I just
Or I
use
suppose you don't add water to cider.
right. Yeah, it'd just be any residual water left from rinsing or after I clean it with the sanitizer solution, then I'll rinse. And so there's a little bit of water that does enter the system, but it's yeah, not a lot in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things. So then what do you ultimately do, or what kind of things can you do with a ginger bug or ginger pop kind of thing?
So once it's been there for quite a few days, it start like bubbling. Just about, you should see like some bubbles on the top. And this is where I kind of was probably a little bit impatient and probably could have waited a little bit more because I don't think I really got like a good carbonation on like the ginger pop that I made.
Mm.
So I put it into swing top bottles with juice. The ratio was about like a quarter cup ginger bug to a quart of juice, I guess. But I put a quarter cup of ginger bug into a swing top, and then I just filled it up the rest of the way.
Uh-huh.
So it maybe flavored a little bit more ginger than what the recipe would have been saying, I suppose, because the swing top bottle is what, like six? Is it only like 16 ounces?
Yeah, that sounds about right. 16 ounces or so. It's a little bit more than your 12-ounce bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the flavor of ginger, so I didn't
Yeah,
mind it.
I like ginger too. So it's like that's one of those things where like was that recipe based was based on having so much juice to add additional carbonation? I don't know.
I figured that I added some of our homemade grape juice, and I did an apple one as well. I figured there was definitely enough sugar in the grape juice that I wouldn't have to add sugar. Maybe in the apple one, and maybe I should have, because it seemed like a kind of mellow apple juice that I had here. I don't know what type of apple juice it was. I don't think it was labeled very well.
Was that
Um,
stuff that was harvested from the farm and stuff, or did you go get
it
some
was from the
juices?
farm. Yeah. Oh, and then I did get some juices from the store. I got some organic pineapple juice or something, and that one was good.
Huh.
That was good. So I like the flavors of them. So I mean that's one thing that I like about it. I didn't really get it carbonated, so I think I was just a little impatient on it. I think I only waited like 3 4 days, and you're supposed to keep it at room temperature, away from the sun, kind of thing.
Hmm.
If you have them in a flip top bottle, burp them every once in a while just in case there's buildup,
Right.
so it doesn't explode on you. But no, it
I
was it was
suppose
good.
you burp them too much though, and then you lose your carbonation. So there's probably definitely
Hmm.
a balance there. Yeah.
So yeah, I got pretty impatient, and one of my coworkers was like, "Well, you could just add a little bit of champagne yeast in there. I got some champagne yeast that you could borrow." And I was like, well, maybe. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's really taken off by itself. So my second batch that I did put some champagne yeast in there, and yeah, that helped. You only put like a couple granules of that in like one flip top bottle. it,
Yeah, yeah.
it
They
takes
make those
off.
like predetermined sugar cube sizes, and that's usually what I did with the ciders. Was you'd have the yeast that's still in there, active in the cider, and then you just drop in this little condensed sugar cube, basically liquefied sugar cube, and then so it's more like candy kind of thing. But yeah, it was probably only like maybe a melted 3 tablespoons of sugar or something like that. It wasn't 3 teaspoons. I mean, so that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm trying to decide if it's something that I'd ever do or not. I mean,
The only thing I was worried about with the champagne yeast is that, well, starting to get alcohol content in it. I was like, oh, do I want, my kids drinking it if it's, but it's how long, I don't know, you might know more about that. Like, how long would it really have to take to add, like, enough alcohol content to it? Because, I mean, technically, this is a wild fermentation, too, so there'd probably be a little bit of alcohol content in there.
yeah, I mean, and every time you add more sugar to it, you're getting more alcohol in it, right? Because it's fermenting more.
Right.
So how can you can't keep these things too long without it becoming like a boozy adventure.
So, I mean, yeah, for the recipe that I was looking at, like, you're looking at maybe, like, a total of, like, if you did start from finish, starting your starter and finishing your bottle, you're looking at like 14 days.
Yeah, that'd be man. I'd be tempted to. Of course, the only way my hydrometer would work if I had bigger than an amount of a gallon, because it's so so the hydrometers are so tall that measure the bricks and the sugar. So if I
Yep.
did like you almost want to get a measure of the sugar content prior, then after so many days, you can test it, again, and then say, oh, the bricks dropped, 5 or 6 points, and so then my alcohol could essentially then be this amount. Actually, you could use a refractometer. That's supposed to be a measure of bricks, and then just look at your hydrometer where the lines will match up. Then you just need like an eyedropper of on your reflectometer or whatever it is, and that kind of tells you, yeah. So
There you go. Sounds like a good science experiment for anybody that's homeschooling kids or anything, or after school.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey, we're talking about that here eventually. That's one thing that we also hope to kind of get into in this podcast a little bit too is talking about a little bit of our adventures with homeschooling. There's some episodes on that with people's experiences doing it. We haven't really done it a whole lot yet. Kind of in a transition period between getting settled in the country and getting some finances in order to be able to, renovate our shop because that's like there's a piece of work. But and then once we kind of overlap jobs a little bit, then Nora might keep on working while I am playing the dead daycare, I guess. But daddy school. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we had an episode a little while back about establishing our gardens, and that was my brother David. Man, just for reference, his peonies are like 2 feet tall already, and mine are like 4 inches out of the ground. Those are like the first things that come up out of the ground. Planted my potatoes about 2 weeks ago, and they're still not out of the ground. So hopefully that happens soon. We have a little bit of up and down weather here in
Yeah.
Minnesota, that's for sure. I've been trying to start, or we'll be starting some seeds that Lawrence gave me here the other day. He gave me some wild bergamot, some milkweed, and some prairie coneflower seeds. And you ask, what are you going to do with that? Well, I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going to put kind of like, I guess basically make an accent ditch basically along my road.
Mhm.
Where I'm gonna hopefully get a bunch of these things started and make either put them and scattered throughout or make more of a natural native ditch basically with some extra wildflowers in there and some wild species of grasses too as well. I'm hoping to get some little blue stem, big blue stem going and
So you
rather
had a
than
purple prairie clover in there too, right?
yeah, that bag somewhere. I couldn't find that bag for reference to make sure I had it, but it's around.
Yeah, till it up, put in some big blue stem, little blue stem, Indian grass.
I'll see. I wasn't even thinking about tilling it up. I was thinking, and maybe some of my listeners might not like this or not, but either putting down plastic, a little foot, 6 inches long by however long I'm gonna make my row or my ditch, by the highway there, and then, or I thought about just taking some glyphosate and spraying a little 12-foot band and walking from flag to flag, and then that way kind of outcompete. That way the native species can kind of outcompete the brome and the ditch
Oh
grass.
yeah. Yeah, you definitely gotta get rid of them, otherwise they'll just take over anyways.
All right, yeah. So at least if I spray it 12 inches out quick, and then I can get my mower close enough and make rows like Lawrence kind of thinking, if you made rows, then you could at least kind of manicure it a little bit. But eventually, I would probably stop manicuring it if the native species took off well enough. Because I think they could probably all compete once they're adults, couldn't they, Lawrence? Like a couple years old.
Yeah. I'd say burn it. Burn it every
No.
once in a while.
Well, the ditch does need burning. It's so littered full plugged right now. But so you gave me all these seeds. So what were you? You had a couple other species and things that you're planting around your
Yeah,
house.
I had like a smaller kind of wild native garden in the backyard here in town. And they had a bunch of black-eyed Susans and a couple like tall phlox and stuff like that. And I just want to kind of fill in a little bit. So I had those species in there, just to add a little bit of diversity. And then I had a couple other ones that I had that were more shade-loving native plants, like columbine and tall thimbleweed that I put in a spot that doesn't get very much sun. And then I had some goldenrod, some indigo, some beard tongue that I was going to put in, and some butterfly weed. That's a nice orange color. So I was mainly looking for like different colors, I suppose, than what I already had with the yellow and orange of the black-eyed Susan, or like the deep red, I suppose. It's more of a red than an orange. So I was looking for some purples and some whites and some yellows kind of thing. And it's really sandy over here too, so I figured that natives would probably do a little bit better with the drier, sandy soils. So that way, I don't really need to fertilize it as much. Typically you don't fertilize natives. They can usually thrive on what they got essentially in the soil.
Yeah, well, usually natives are mixed in with forbs or something like that in a nice environment, so you get some nitrogen fixation too that they might be able to utilize as well. I think in a more natural setting that's not like degraded or
Right, and yeah, I got that
monospecies.
purple prairie clover too. So that's a legume. So that will
There you
have
go.
some sort of nitrogen fixation too in that.
Perfect. There's a couple of those I never heard of, like the large flowered beard tongue and a butterfly weed. I was
Do you
like,
know
what are
what, do you know
those?
what a foxglove is?
Yeah.
So apparently the beer tongue is like a wild foxglove.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the butterfly weed, it's like an orange. It's related to milkweed, so it should be good for like monarchs and pollinators and stuff too. It's a
Gotcha.
well, hopefully I have some that pop up and you can take a look at them and see.
Yeah, well, I tried starting I want to get this I like a I don't know, was it 12 foot by 8 foot little garden bed that's slightly raised, but there's three sections of it, so three of those areas stacked upon each other, and then the one in the middle, I was thinking about mostly because my flower bed's full of quite well at least yeah probably I think it's quackgrass yeah because it had the rhizomes quackgrass, and so I'm just trying to get rid of this stuff and trying to get away without spraying it and trying to like dig it up and then sieve it out because I think even if you sprayed that stuff, you're still gonna have roots that survive. So I'm trying to sift that out and clean it out. And I'm gonna start with putting some lupins in. I think I'm gonna make a little lupin patch in that middle section. I think that'd be kind of fun. But so far, I've started some. You're supposed to like sow directly, but I'm just getting impatient also. So I put them in little plant plugs and stuff, and I think I got like 3 out of the 30 so far that germinated. But I'm hoping it's a little early. There's a couple seeds because you're supposed to like scarify it, and then so you probably throw it in the freezer for a month or something like that. But I was hoping that part was already done, and so I just took a little X-Acto knife and kind of braise the seed a little bit, and then soak it over for 24 hours overnight. So that swelled, and there's like 3, 4 seeds that like swelled, like doubled in size. And I was like, heck yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And the other ones are kind of like they soaked up a little bit, but mostly just kind of shedded their seed coat some.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully the other ones are coming. They're just a little bit farther behind. Is what I'm hoping.
Most native seeds at least need some sort of stratification. And that's what I planted mine in the fall so that they had like the whole winter
To swell and freeze and
for that cold snap to like get that because I was looking at the seeding instructions and stuff and they're like, oh, it needs 60 days of cold moist
yeah.
stratification, and I'm like, okay, I'll just plant them in the fall and what pops up. I mean, you get one little packet and there's hundreds of seeds in one little packet, so you can be a little bit generous the first go around and see if you need to thin them out or not.
That's true. I suppose when I plant some of these native species like the coneflower, I could probably put 2 or 3 seeds in a plug and then hopefully kind of put them in a little bit so I have enough, not all the coneflower on one side of the ditch or something. Hopefully it'll kind of spread them out so they're all take hopefully. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure when I'm going to start that. If it's going to be this year or I don't know. When you get a little 5 acres, you realize you start losing a lot of your time to cleaning out the windbreak from
Yeah.
trees that are dead and mowing lawn and all this stuff. But all stuff I enjoy putzing with, but all does take
Well, you
time.
gotta you
So
gotta make sure your wife is okay with all your little projects too.
yeah. I think she likes the fact that she can make it so they can see some wildflowers and stuff like that from the honestly, I think she'd probably prefer I just tilled it up and then plant an annual thing every year to spread new seed out there.
Yeah, I've seen some videos and things of people doing that, but then it's not like wildflowers.
Right. It's more like
It's annual. Yeah,
I used
it's
to call them wildflowers, but
annual wildflowers and
yeah, exactly. Yep. But got a little segue from the junior bug there for you for all your listeners. Got a little bonus, right? Talking about some native species. But so yeah, if you guys are looking at planting some native stuff, it definitely takes a little time to research and figure out how you're gonna do that and some planting and stuff, unless you're just bulk planting in like a field or something like that. But I'd be curious to see what other species you guys have planted in Minnesota natively, native species that have been working for people. Most things, I guess, are native, so they should do well. But if it's just small landscaping setting, or part of the reason I kind of want to put a little native stuff out there too is eventually hopefully get another box of bees out here or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But so yeah, my goal in the yard is to have something blooming like all year long, not all year because it's winter, but you know,
get your greenhouse and then you can.
yeah, I know that's kind of one of the things I kind of trying to figure out if I can like incorporate it into my shed once I build like a new shed or something. If I can like have it on the south side and have like more like an observatory kind of attached to it, so I can kind of use a little bit of the heat from the building to keep it a little bit more warm. But I'm sure there's challenges with that also. So we'll see. All right, Lawrence. Well, thanks for chit chatting about the ginger bug, and yeah, hopefully you guys get encouraged to try things yourself, whether it be sourdough or ginger bug or kombucha or whatever. the more people can learn to do some of this stuff ourselves, you know, and get I don't know. I think the world would be better if we got back into a little bit more of the small farming kind of thing. Even though I am a proponent of agriculture, but sometimes you just get too big. And I think starting to learn some of the more of these techniques and stuff on an individual household basis is awesome and productive. So yeah, that's my political viewpoint for the day. All right, Lawrence, thanks much.
All right, thank you guys.